first or second time, actually probably both, you should walk out of that meeting knowing more than you did before. There should be some teaching so that, like we say in the Simply Financial podcast, that you have increased your financial IQ. I think we're pretty good at that, don't you?
I do, but let's break that down. What makes somebody a good teacher? So are they communicating with you in a way that you understand? So are they, like you said, are they using technical jargon that you don't understand? But some people do, and some people don't. So you have to be able to have somebody that can work with you in your style, so you are understanding terms, you're not feeling talked down to, and they make sure that you understand what they're saying. And, this comes back to, yesterday. So you had a client, after a client meeting, you told me that she told you that the only reason that she even comes to these meetings, because she doesn't like this stuff, she doesn't really understand it, is because you take the time to break things down for her in a way that she understands, that's enjoyable, where she likes coming to these meetings. She walks away with something that she can take with her. And it is so powerful for somebody to be able to take something like that away with them, especially when they've not ever been involved in this at all.
Yes, there was a wonderful compliment, and just to be a little comical, it's husband and wife again. So he usually interacts with us. He takes the lead, and that's not unusual in a relationship where, one person or the other kind of takes the lead, kind of a divide and conquer. There's a lot that needs to get done daily. So he takes the lead with that. And what she said, if it wasn't fun coming to see you and I didn't learn things, I would have just sent him. I guess that goes back to when a woman wants X, she's going to get X.
Yes.
But it was a nice compliment, because she said, it's fun, everything's explained to me so that I understand and I learned something, so it was a good use of her time. Otherwise, she would have just sent him, which during the year, this was like an annual review. We're recording this in early January 2020. So it was an annual review to talk about what happened in the 2019 year, talk about 2020's outlook, see what's changed on their end, all of that good stuff. So that was a nice compliment. But you should definitely learn something. And if you feel like you're being talked down to, that's a bad negative. And if you feel like the conversation is going way over your head, that's also an enormous negative too. It's not that the advisor should know more about this stuff than you. They should be immersed in this. But if they can't bridge the gap, I think that's a term that you used, and you're not learning, then that is not going to be healthy. And it ties back to trust, because it's more difficult to trust somebody when you really don't know what they're talking about.
Right. Well, not only that, not even talking down to them, but using terms that they're comfortable with, or that they, not oversimplifying stuff too. So you don't want somebody coming in and talking to you about, I don't know, what a stock is and what a bond is, when you're already way past that on stock options with your employer and stuff.
Sure.
I mean, you already know that, and they should be able to pick up on what you know and be able to match.
That's a good point. Yes, we've had lots of meetings, so this is nice and fresh conversation. But yesterday, we were with, you'll know who I'm speaking about, but he started using terms like limit orders and stop orders. I mean, those are pretty technical terms, and if you're listening, they may or may not mean something to you. But that means our conversation with him on that particular topic was going to be more technical than you might in another conversation, because of what was being spoken about and what the client was talking about. So you do have to match the teaching. That's a great point. The next item is shared values. That it's related to what we talked about before, but you want to have a relationship where you have shared values. And so when you're sitting with the potential advisor that you might hire, you want to see if there's a shared worldview, shared values, if there's some, just commonality in either your background or thinking, So I know, for an example, and it's not as dramatic now because I'm almost 50, but for large swaths of my career, I would use the example of small business entrepreneurs. Like, I could connect with small business entrepreneurs. We had shared values. I'm a small business entrepreneur. And so the way that I would look at the world as a small business owner seemed to resonate with entrepreneurs. So some of my early success in business was focusing on small business entrepreneurs because we had shared values, because I was going through the same struggles, when to hire, who to hire, how do you run your business, how do you become more efficient. Small business owners have quarterly tax payments. That's a lot different than somebody that works for a business and have the taxes taken out of their weekly or monthly pay. So shared values is important. You don't need to agree on everything, because in contrast, I had dinner last night with wonderful clients. We have a fabulous business relationship. But in the realm of politics, we have a very different worldview. And so we don't have shared values there. But in many other areas that are important in the business relationship, we do have shared values. So it doesn't need to be, we got to agree on everything. And if both parties are respectful and can agree that we're going to disagree in this area, but we have shared values here, and that helps us achieve our financial goals and feel comfortable with how our financial plan and our investments are being handled, it's a win for both sides. What are your thoughts on shared values?
I think it's important to have shared values between, your advisor and the client.
You've seen me in lots of meetings over the last couple of years, and although it's changed some as you've emerged into a more experienced financial advisor, but a lot of times we're in the meetings, I'll take the lead more often than not, and we collaborate, but I'm probably often in the lead, and what I'll talk to clients about is like books, because I'm an avid reader, right?
Yes.
And it's a way that I can create shared values, find out about them, because if they are a reader, and in Florida, in a retirement community, not everybody is a reader, but there's lots of people that do read various books. But that's a way that I kind of build shared values. Again, the meeting yesterday with the person I was talking about stop orders and limit orders, when we had first met years ago, he had made a book recommendation to me, and I had read the book, and it was a fabulous book. And then I read another book from that author, and then I sent him as a gift that book. So that was a way we kind of have shared values, because we're kind of looking at the same. These are history books, by the way, because I'm a tremendous geek.
Yeah.
But that's one of the ways that I help along the shared values to find some common ground with books.
So it's kind of like common experiences.
Sure.
Being with somebody who's been through what you're either going through or is going through the same thing that you are going through currently. So being a mom, having kids in high school, it's easy for me to connect and help people through what they're going through if they're going through the same thing. Being a divorcee, I know you have not experienced that, but that is something that I've gone through and that I'm able to help people through. Having common ground and being able to connect with somebody is very important. So you know that they are able to give you good advice because they've been there themselves. Yeah,
no, it's an excellent point. And the last thing I wanted to speak about, and by the way, listeners, we're gonna do 5 today. We did likability, trust, teaching, shared values. Next, we're gonna do communication style. But Lindy and I have a meeting, so we're gonna take a break. We're going to come back and we're going to do the final 5 in our ultimate list of 10, and we're just going to break it into 2 segments. But communication style, again, a lot of what we've talked about is related to communication style, but specifically we're talking about how you communicate verbally, in writing, body language. These are really, really important in the realm of likability, trust, teaching and learning, the shared values. It's very important, and this is not just in business. This is the same thing between You and your husband, you and your children, you and other people you come across, whether you're the client or you are the professional. Communication style, super important. So why don't you touch a little bit on the body language part of that?
Right. So I know a lot of your focus is on, verbal communication. Is somebody able to match you verbally, communicate in a way that you can understand? I like to look at people's body language and be able to see if you say something and they cringe, or they have a certain look on their face, or they kind of sit away from you, just how they're responding, and being able to pick up on those subtle cues to know if you need to revisit something, if you need to explain something more, if somebody's having an emotional reaction to something that you've said that you really need to dig a little deeper into. It's really important to work with somebody that's able to pick up on those subtle clues, so they're able to do the best work for you. And you had touched on it before, but I also wanted to go on, I guess, communication type.
Yes.
Because that's all part of communication style. So, the older generations, they like that in-person, coming to your office, meeting, face-to-face, and not only does it build trust, it's what they're used to. That's how everything used to be, when they were growing up. The younger generation, though, they're used to electronic devices in front of them at all times, and that's how they communicate, and they don't want to pick up the phone if somebody even calls. They don't want to talk to a human. So you have to be able to work with somebody that is able to match your preferred communication style, whether it's, text or email, or meeting in person, or coming to your home even. But it is important for somebody to...
Sure. And I'll add on, some people like to see things in writing. Other people would like to see things graphically.
Right.
I'm verbal, so I have to be careful that I'm not putting that onto them, because some people would rather see graphs and colors and pictures. Sometimes that's a little bit of an analytical person versus a creative person, and God knows I'm not a creative person. But no, that's a good point. And so when a potential client is meeting with an advisor, they want to be picking up on how the firm, not just the advisor, but everything that happened in terms of how the meeting was scheduled, how they're talking about follow-up, the communication style. So it's not just the personality of the advisor, the communication of the advisor, but just kind of everything surrounding it. In particular with the advisor, I know for myself is that I'm a New Yorker at heart. I talk fast. That's not for everyone. I do need to temper that, and I need to be aware. Again, we've had so many meetings this week, but we were with a client that is from the Deep South, and our accents are quite different, right? And I probably talk way faster than he would prefer, so I do need to be careful about that. But still, it is who I am, and I can temper it. I need to be aware. But at the end of the day, I am who I am, just like the client is who they are. And so that's not for everyone. And also, I tend to be pretty direct. And sometimes that can rub people the wrong way. I think on balance, it's who I am, and it works well. You mentioned with the evolution of Elliott Wealth Management has included acquiring other practices. So we've ended up with clients. And when we've sat with clients at times, I've said, listen, this is a little unusual, because you really didn't hire me. You did not pick me.
Yes.
You picked so-and-so, and then so-and-so picked me. So you may end up firing me because you didn't pick me, and I may not be for you.
Yeah.
That's pretty darn direct. But I want to get it out there. My personal direct attitude is I'll follow up and say in those situations, but I and the rest of the team here, we're going to do everything to reinforce that so-and-so picking us to buy his business was the right decision so that we can make this work. But I recognize that you didn't really pick me.
Right. And you being so direct and me taking kind of the softer side of things.
Sure.
I think I love when we do meetings together